Hello, everyone. I'm Richard Schwartz. I'm head of research at Global Custodian, and I'm here today with Javier Hernani, who is head of security services at Six Group. Welcome, Javier.
Thank you very much, Richard.
We're going to be discussing some of the opportunities and challenges that the security services industry faces as we head into the winter months in Europe. And I'd like to get some idea to start of how common these challenges are. So Javier, you've got direct experience of both the Spanish market and the Swiss market, just to name two. If you look at those two markets, to what extent do you see common challenges and to what extent are they market specific?
Actually, no, this is the reality is that in this moment, I would think that all post-trade challenges in the world are very similar. Specifically, let's say the broad ones, the important ones, clearly. No? The big difference between the Swiss and the Spanish market is basically the fact that the Swiss market obviously is not part of target to securities. I think that is the biggest difference between how we operate in both markets. Obviously, in the Swiss market, the SIS CSD is an independent it's independent CSD, which is not linked for settlement with target to securities, where Iberclear is basically, as the rest of the euro-denominated CSDs, settles into the target to securities construct. So this is the biggest difference. Now we have outsourced in the Eurozone and Iberclear, we have outsourced our settlement functionalities to target to securities in the hands of the European Central Bank. But if you look at how the two markets operate, they are very similar because obviously in post-trade, I would say there is a very big harmonization across countries and clearly within Europe, within the European Union and outside the European Union, very similar.
So as you suggested, globally, the way that securities are processed is still sequential and similar in all markets. You have a chain and transactions travel down the chain to the CSD. Does that still make sense at a time when people are talking about digital securities and blockchain and instant settlement? Does that still work?
Well, I would say that that's a very good question because it links to this list of challenges. I would say that maybe number one or number two in the list of challenges all over the world, the digitalization process is located. I'm with you. I think the sequential nature of today's value chain will be replaced by the instantaneous character of the digital process. This has to be still obviously has to be spread out in the industry. We are in the early stages of that. The technology is obviously here. In our hands, we have SDX, which is a full digital exchange with all the post-trade activities also in it, which is fully licensed under the Swiss law. So the technology works. We know it works. It's already in our hands. And clearly replaces the sequential nature of today's value chain with a number of advantages.
You recently joined the board of ISA, the International Securities Association, which, as the name suggests, is an international body. Do you find the same degree of priority given to things like digitalization across all the members of ISA or the people, your colleagues on the board? Is there a similar sense of the priorities, in other words, that the industry needs to focus on?
I would say yes. I think ISA is a very valuable association. It clearly focuses into trying to bring efficiency, reduce risk, make a collaborative forum in which we can share thoughts and spread solutions. I think this is a very valuable association for all of us. The list of challenges, I think, is common. We discuss it over the year, every year. So I think there is a very good understanding of what should be done in the sector. This topic of digitalization is shared by everybody. How does this affect all of us in the standards of how we work, in the efficiency that might bring, also in the competition that might also bring into our activities, and how do we tackle that situation? So it's very transformative, no? The rest of the challenges that we have agreed on are very well known. No? T+1 is clearly one of them. The convergence towards T+1 that has been proposed by the US and Canada is a very challenging proposition that we have to clearly go into that in big detail to, again, understand how better it is, how challenging it is from the point of view of the risk, of how much risk we reduce in T+1, how much also operational risk we have to deal with in shorter periods of time, to do reconciliation and so many other things that happen in very few hours already. No? Other challenges like the sanctions implementations that we have now on the back of us and everything that has to do with the war situation, and also other topics like the proxy voting intensification of people voting more and more in the AGMs in a more detailed way, in this more detailed challenges. And also more broader ones like the talent retention, the working from home methodology, this kind of thing. So we try to cover all of us in this collaborative framework, the number of things we have to face, short-term, long-term, detail, or big or broader. No?
Now you mentioned competition, and there was a time, I've been covering this area for a long time, but when I was a young journalist, there were areas that didn't seem to lend themselves to competition in the investment process. And there was a concept of market utilities, and central securities depositories, with the name central being key, were seen as areas which didn't warrant competition. Has that changed with the coming of digitalization?
Yes, it is. It's a very fair question around this D versus C, no? Decentralized or digital, the common D, versus the C of central. No, this is a big debate that we obviously have to go through in the next years. Certainly, I think even in the digital space, there is a very needed role for a certain C, a certain central function to make sure that everything is right. Obviously, everything in the CSD world is about being robust, having the right register, the right functionalities in custody, in primary custody. So these kind of things, to some extent, have to be assured by somebody, even in the distributed ledger world, in the sense that we also live in a world of rights, in a world of legal rights, in which somebody has to take care of the burden of making sure and be accountable for that certain things are done in the right way. So in a totally anarchic D, which is, this paradigm of total freedom sounds very nice, but when you land it into contracts, clients, customers, services, and these kind of things, you really need, in my opinion, you would still need for a very strong central role that shares certain functionalities of the register, but at the same time make sure that the whole industry works in the right way in these functions, because otherwise I think we honestly risk too much by going into a paradigm that is full anarchy. I really don't believe in that. I think competition is good. And by the way, in the CSDA area, we have to bear in mind that in Europe, the introduction of Target 2 securities actually opens a fair amount of competition between CSDs, with the possibility to link to each other and settle into the same transaction engine. No? So the landscape is changing from regulation, the introduction of Target 2 securities and technology, and all of them together go into the direction of more competition. So we need to be clearly adapted to it.
Obviously, another way of avoiding or limiting the possibility of anarchy that comes through competition is regulation, which you touched on briefly. Regulators are often accused of regulating for the last crisis. Now, I'm not asking you to comment on that, as you're not a regulator, but is there anything on the horizon where you would welcome more regulatory scrutiny at this stage to prevent accidents down the road?
Yes, I think in the two worlds we live in, the trading and the post-trading, I would clearly say that in the trading part, there is more need for scrutiny on best execution. I think the type of anarchy that the MTF world has introduced in the previous world is obviously more competition, which is good. We all reckon that. But I think regulators should look into more scrutiny on whether or not investors are properly protected in terms of what is the best price they're actually getting in this moment, in this construct. There, I would clearly welcome more scrutiny in how investors are receiving the principle, the legal principle of best execution really in their portfolios. I think in the trading part, to me, that is the missing piece. In the post-trading part, I think what we are discussing right now in terms of how the crypto assets, the cryptocurrencies, the DLT technology is introducing, let's say, more assets, more possibilities to invest. I really need that. I really think that the regulation is and the scrutiny is really needed. Steps are being taken already in the Europe through MiCA, through the pilot regime, through DAURA. I mean, there's a number of regulatory efforts that are very welcome, in my opinion. But the thing is here that we really need this to be implemented because the crypto world is growing very fast, even with all the crises that we've seen. Probably will continue to grow, and there is a lack of certainty and security, in my opinion, in this world. And to be very precise, I would welcome that regulation would apply to the crypto world the same principles that are applied to the division of responsibilities we have in the value chain in the normalized securities world. I really believe that separating custody from settlement and clearing is a blessing for the securities value chain, and this has to be introduced in the crypto world big time. I don't believe that platforms that do, for example, for cryptocurrencies, all those roles together is a safe place for investors. I really don't, because we've seen it in the history of securities already, and the regulation was introduced for a very good reason. And what I would like to see is the same principles be applied to the new world, the new technology, and the new assets. I think it would be extremely sanitary.
Okay, thank you very much, Javier. It looks like the industry has its hands full with a long agenda for the coming years. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Richard. Thank you.